Good day, ladies and gents. Today we're going to start to look at automation and the negativity that comes behind it. People have fears in general, like anxieties, when they start working with automation. And today we're going to look at, I have 15 different areas, a couple phases, and we're going to look at how that kind of sits in society. So like I said, we're going to discuss kind of four phases here. We're going to discuss navigating through the automation lifecycle. The different phases we'll talk about are pre-implementing, operational friction, governance gap, optimization and strategy. And they're all centered around automations and how they kind of work in the process. I just want to kind of leave you with this to begin with. Automation is a force multiplier. It either improves, kind of backs up your efforts, makes you look amazingly smart, or ridiculously not smart. Uh, it's it's a lot of one way or the other, and most of the projects fail, and they don't fail because of the automation. They don't fail because of the technology. They fail because of the human part behind it. What you haven't put in place, what you haven't done. And my general thinking is let's talk about it and try to get you to that 50% of winning. Because if half of them fail, the other half win. So, like I said before, the reality here is 30 to 50% of these things don't reach the full potential. It's it's sad, but it's true. Technology is rarely the issue. It's people's inability to do things. And when we look at the financial stress and barriers, in some cases, not necessarily now with the whole industry of vibe coding, but the costs are pretty high up front. Um, for someone to do an assessment to conduct, an analysis in some areas, it takes tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you go to those big groups that do the risk assessment work, they're taking 6 to 7 months. They're charging you $100,000, and you hope to get on the other end something you can use. That's not something I believe everybody would really want to try to do. Another issue is some of this stuff is complex. It's not something that everybody can do. It's not a skill set that everybody has. The general thinking here is you have professionals for that. Let them do that, um, and they're never going to understand what the processes they're doing. They're never going to understand where they're trying to get to, and it's not necessarily something healthy for you to do. Um, there's not really a way to thin out or lean a process if you don't understand any of the things that go into it. It's heavily code based and you're not a code person. There's going to be a lot of complexity in that space. Um, for these two things, think about this as a issue and solution system, where you have an issue of high upfront costs, where you have an issue of complexity. For the high upfront costs, you want to do as much research as you can and look around to as much places as you can for examples of how to thin the cost without taking away some of the effectiveness or capability. That could be an assessment you could do. With the complexity, you'll have to break it down into certain parts and pieces and kind of figure out a part at a time. Let's say if you're creating something in a code environment, maybe you break it down in a language at a time and you figure that out each language at a time to see if you can thin some of that information out or make it a little more efficient. Um, but in these spaces where you're working with, just a person you've met, there's not a lot of chance to do this kind of stuff. But if you have the availability and the ability to do it, I would suggest you do it to make your assessments more functional and make your automation process a little more a bigger chance that it'll actually succeed because you'll get to understand your product a little more. Um, there's a logic gap. So there's an understanding and a logic to this, and your machines they don't understand your why. They don't understand why in general. Uh, they understand yes and no, true and false. Rarely do they understand why. That's more of a human thing to ask. Um, and for that one, I mean, you have to put um, those stop gaps in place. You can't just let a machine go and do whatever it wants. You have to put some hard stops in place so that you can ask the why and make sure it's still on that same path. Um, Another one is edge case failures, where um, 1 or 2% of something in a system could crash that entire system. You don't know what it is. You're not sure where it comes or when it comes. You just know it comes, and you have to be prepared for it. So that's contingency planning. A lot of that happens, not often, but a lot of it happens. And when you do have a contingency plan, you're extremely happy that you did put it in place before something like this happens. Um, and it just takes continuous monitoring. That's something with automation you can set up and hopefully test it enough so where you need it and it actually works the time you actually need it to work, and you don't have any other kind of issues that come into play there. But it's the flags, the anomalies, and the immediate action that kind of follows that you need in that case to make sure your automations are proper and working. Technical downtime, cybersecurity risks, two big things in any kind of automation or artificial intelligence. Downtime is something you see. Like if you guys ever play like phone games, you'll see it all the time where they're like, we're going to be down for the next 2 hours because they have to take whatever system you're in and bring it up to the level they need it to make sure it's safe. Um, for mitigation for those, you have to prepare for that. You have to be um, knowledgeable and okay when the downtime comes, and even you could even do some predictive maintenance where if you don't do this, then something else could happen and you're preventing the more downtime from happening. So if you know something's going on, you fix it, and then you get that in place of the actual downtime. So do a little bit of maintenance to make sure you don't have to use that downtime. Um, Cybersecurity. Oh my gosh, this is a whole life into itself. Uh, Randomware, bugs, viruses, those kind of things. Every single day, there are even frameworks just dedicated to this kind of stuff in risk management. In NIST, the NIST framework. It is essentially just for cybersecurity risk. And you have to make sure that you have protocols and your network's isolated. There's no way to get in or get out unless you want it to, and you can't trust anything that comes in a protected space. You have to, in your mind, you have to think everything is a threat, and you can't let that in. So in the realm of automation, you have to have protocols in place. You have to have segmented networks for any of these things to go through or move through any of your software or equipment. And in some cases, this could be a reason why your automations aren't working because you don't have a system that will allow it. Human and social factors. This was a tough one. Your lack of ability, uh, emotional ability, just knowledge of machines, your lack of knowledge of how to kind of negotiate things, your uncomfortability with customers, your uncomfortability with new things, with change. All this stuff adds into what could be an issue with automation. Um, and for you to mitigate this stuff, you have to kind of grab any kind of information you can get from your staff, your other supervisors, leaders. You have to find out what works for them, what in these situations they do. That will protect you against any kind of thing like that. Social resistance. This one goes to more of the I'm afraid to change because something could happen, or you've done these things in the past. I don't trust you. And this all boils down to the change management. You have to give them something to be inspired by, be proud of, be excited for. And you have to give them kind of a little bit of the upside here. If there is an automation that deals with some of the work they're doing, let them run it, let them take care of it, let them do it, give them experience on doing it, and then they feel better about some of this change because your change is what's scaring them. They feel like you're going to do this, so I'm going to break everything and I'm not going to allow anyone here to use it. I'm not going to be okay with any of it. I'm going to make everything painful. I think everybody's dealt with that kind of thing before. With all of the folks out there that are telling you that this is bad or this is good, you can see how this would make everyone feel uncomfortable in that social setting. Another one is unflexibility. You're just rigid. You don't change. You don't move. Once you get your sights set on something, that is how it goes, and that is it. You're not a huge fan of change or movement in one direction that's not the way you want to go. That is a huge issue with leadership in some places. That's a huge issue with some of the staff. And frankly, one of the easiest ways to get you to started with this is to show you what you could potentially do. And that's why people use no code and low code stuff like the Lavables and the Netlify, the Vercels, all those things to make these things that people are like, hey, you should use this, you should try this. Most people are not going to try it because that's not the kind of thing they want to do. That's not the space they want to move into. But if you show them they can, maybe they'll be a little bit easier to accept some of this kind of stuff. Another one is customization, but customization is for those ones who know what they want, but they just don't see something from the software, the service they're looking at. And 100% understand this. If you're looking to customize something and the thing that you're using is not doing it for you, that doesn't mean it's junk. It just means it doesn't do the thing that you want it to do. It's a very highly personalized space where, oh, that doesn't do what I want. That's crap. It's junk. That's not something I can use. I'm not going to use ChatGPT. It's not doing what I want. And you find another thing that does, and you say, this is the greatest thing ever. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the greatest thing for everyone. It means it's the greatest thing for you. It means it did exactly what you wanted it to with whatever you're trying to do with it. That doesn't mean it's like it's the only thing you should use. You should have 4 or 5 things that you could use. But for you, like as a consumer, you just have to be flexible with the systems you're using. You can't stick and stay to like one at a time. You have to be open to all these things. You can't, just choose the one you want because it does exactly what you want at this time, because it might not do it again the next time. You might have to find another one. Another one is it's kind of out of your in your thought box. You can't explain why your machine did something. You have an automation, but you can't explain why it did it, and you need it to be explained. You need it to be explainable. You need to recreate it. You need to use it somewhere else. And then you believe, well, okay, it didn't work because it can't explain to me what I want it to do. You have to be able to talk to these things. You have to be able to use logic and tools to help you get this information explained. It's not just going to be easy to explain it because some of these things are very complex when they create these to do the things you need to do. So if you think it's broken or it's not working because you can't explain what it does, that's not the case. That's something that we can figure out and put some kind of words to it to make it easier for you to understand. But it doesn't mean it's broken. It just means it's hard to explain. Another one, regulatory hurdles. Everybody has these, especially in the government. They make it and they give it to themselves. You have you have tax laws, you have zoning laws, you have food storage laws, you have food preparation laws, you have safety laws. There's laws everywhere, and it's hard to comply with all of them. Um, the good news is automation can help you with a bunch of these things. It's like you take a directive or a legislative authority, a piece, and you can distill it into what's required, and in that requirement, what you have to do legally. This could solve hundreds, thousands of hours of work that you could otherwise do in some other area that's not based on these different monitoring and laws that you have in place. And sometimes automations will help you with that, sometimes they'll hurt you with that, and will give you the right information. So you have to make sure that these are properly created and they do exactly what you want them to do, which is give you the information to make you not fail or get penalized for some of these laws that are not being followed. Another one is think about over time, folks forget. They forget how to do the job. They forget the manual parts and pieces in it. They forget the steps that it takes to get complete. They may remember some, they may forget others. Another one is high energy consumption. These things that we use take a lot of environmental and utility costs. They take a lot of energy, water, heat, a lot of these things that create waste for the other areas. And creativity. Probably the one thing that I find the most folks who aren't a fan of automation, they say, well, it's not creative enough. You can't do the things that I want to do. It's not cutting edge. It's not new. Um, there are mitigations for all these things, especially with the skill decay. You have to every so often renew your competencies. You have to renew your trainings. You have to learn new things, learn old things. Again, you have to make sure that you're able to complete these tasks. And the automation space can help you with some simulated drills. It can kind of put you through pressure situations and have you answer these questions. It can have you take these trainings. So it's definitely an area in automation where you can benefit from using it, and you can also benefit from trusting in it. The energy consumption, I mean, if you're failing because you don't kind of find a way to grab less energy, less waste, less process waste, you'd have to find like different times of day, like peak hours. I know a lot of times in California, peak hours, they won't let you, water your lawn certain times. I mean, you have to find ways around it. There are ways to cut out that problem just by going on peak hours and finding different ways, finding different things to use. Not using the same thing that takes so much. Try something that takes a little less. But you also have to know how much it takes, how much energy it takes to fuel this thing you're using. And then in integration, if you don't think something is creative enough, maybe you have to find different ways to pull this information out of these systems. Maybe you have to do some context engineering. Maybe you have to do a little bit of research and development on the tools that are out there, and then find ways to take some of that monotonous old stuff that you don't want to do and turn it into automation, and then take the rest of the time to be creative. Whatever you took out that was mundane, you take that away and use automation, and then you take the rest of the time to be creative. So you have a way to bolster that for your people and your groups, because people still want to be creative. You just may not have the space for it, and with automation you probably could. You could bring that space out, and you could like make that a place where you could do that creative stuff. So in all this stuff, every day you'll be on like the internet, you'll be in these chat rooms, you'll be in these classrooms, and people will tell you automation is bad. not automating is bad. AI is bad. Not using AI is bad. They'll tell you all this stuff, but they won't really know the real truth of it. They'll tell you what they think, but they've never tested this stuff out. They've never looked at any of this stuff. And the way that you do that to find out what the real case is, you just take your time, do a few assessments, kind of figure out what's real and what's not. See if there's any controls you can put in place, like a failsafe that will make sure if something's not going right, you stop it. And then set up some monitors so that when you know what is a place where would be a good range between, whatever and whatever, you want to protect and stay in that range and not move out of it so that you have success in these areas and you're not failing 50% of the time. You're actually succeeding more often than not because you have these things in place. And then just the takeaway here is going and using automations, using artificial intelligence. It's a journey. It's going to take time and effort and practice and exercise. It's not something you just automatically do. You got to think of it as like, what do they say? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You have to think of it in that way because everything is changing so often. Think of it as sort of a destination. And then the one thing I can say to you is we do already have some readiness things you can use. Can find you like maturity scores, next steps, what basic risks you would have by running through a readiness web application that we've already set up and created for you. And then the final piece here is it kind of don't ask what we can automate or can we automate this. Ask, is this something we should be automating? And then when you decide if it's something you should automate, figure out who's watching when it fails. So, you automate it and then you don't just let it sit over on the side. You make sure that whatever you're putting in place works on a repetitive manner. And when it fails, where did it fail? Why did it fail? How did it fail? And how can we fix it? Those are the things you really should worry about. Not it's good or bad or you don't know what you're doing, that kind of stuff. If you use it, what does it do? When does it fail? And how do you fix it? It's basically what you should be worrying about. And then as always, any of the questions you have, we'll take it over to the school community in the lab. We'll talk about it. I'm going to post this information in there. Everybody can have it there so they can see it, along with the PowerPoint that I have here. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you over there.